We cross back to SABC News reporter Natasha Phiri, who has an ear on the ground for us. A very good morning to you, Natasha. Thanks indeed for joining us. I would imagine at the top of the agenda is the discussion really went wrong for the EFF.
Definitely, Simpiwe. Of course, that was reflected yesterday in outgoing party leaders' political report. Of course, right now we're joined by a person who's been with us and will continue to be with us until the end of the third NPA of the EFF. And this is none other than Mr. Sandile Swana, who's a political analyst. We'll just also quiz him on his take of Mr. Malema's speech. But thank you so much for joining us at SABC News. First and foremost, before we get to today's proceedings, what do you make of his overall, political report yesterday?
The political report presented by Julius Malema was one of the highest quality I've seen in a long time. Provided the theoretical basis of the EFF, which Nin and Fanon, and then it went on to the programs, what they had promised before and what was the level of achievement. And then he also spoke a little bit what I thought was some form of future manifesto and the motivational part.
Let's just also perhaps get to the issue of Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. I mean, they also raised a lot of, I was listening to one EFF member just speaking to Clement Manyathela, confirmed that Ndlozi was going to be here. He was nowhere in sight. But perhaps just unpack, what do you make of him not coming yesterday? Do you expect do you expect him to actually come today, seeing that there are nominations of that leadership?
I don't know if he's got the personality to come and wrap this meeting. The problem that Ndlozi has is that he appears to have had some hand in the sabotage of the EFF by the double agents, Dalimpo Fufu and Floyd Shibambo, who were representing the interests of the MKP, whilst also active inside the structures of the EFF. So Ndlozi seems, in terms of perhaps Marshall Dlamini and Julius Malema's view, that he didn't do enough to protect the EFF. And maybe they've suspended him. Maybe they'll see him next year to see what to do with him.
Mr. Sansana, let's also just look at the leadership contest. And apart from the commissions that we're going to be seeing their nominations, of course, when we engage delegates, they expect Mr. Malema to come back, and they also expect Marshall Secretary General to come back. Tested the positions, the other positions that Deputy President, some are saying that it's a battle between Godrich Gadi, who was a former Secretary General and head of relations, versus Vuyani Pambo, who's currently the head of the presidency in the party. You have the DSG, Bobi Mailula's position that may be up for grabs. You also have the CG. May come in, and the national chair. How do you see?
I think the coming back of Godrich Gadi is something that the EFF should take seriously and consider seriously and include him actually in their top structures, particularly now that they've had this destabilizing influence. I see Godrich Gadi and Marshall Dlamini as a safe pair of hands, the two of them, in support of Julius Malema. The younger persons such as Tambo and Pambo and others have demonstrated, which is what they should do, intellectual prowess, which is what as a nation we expect. As to which position they are there, demonstrated, I was quite impressed to hear the report that they now have proper functioning branches in all the wards in Gauteng. That is an important element for building a strong future for the organization. So if you were to be accommodated in the top structure, I see no harm in that. However, in your commentary, we need to be careful about whether the EFF will be able to continue to be a leading part in accommodating women in the top structures.
And actually, I was getting to that. You've partially answered my question, because, the EFF always in gender parity. 50% of their delegates are actually female. You have more women than males. But how do you see women in that leadership structure?
The problem that you actually have, Natasha, right now is the security panic. And when you have a security panic, people become defensive. And the EFF is in a defense stance. So the women who may be trusted with security are probably the one who will emerge. But in a security panic, a lot of rational and fair decisions may be undermined. We must not rule that out. But if it was just a clear weather, I would have expected women to play a much more prominent role. Right now, there's a lot of nervousness in the EFF.
Mr. Sanilesana, we'll continue with this conversation in the next half hour. Interesting view coming from Mr. Sanilesana. Of course, he's one of our politicians that will be with us throughout the course of the third NPA of the EFF. Simphiwe Liesel and our viewers, just a reminder that at 9 a.m. there will be a press briefing with the outgoing leadership of the EFF, and this is where we, members of the media, will be engaging them on other outcomes of his political report, Mr. Mana's political report that he delivered yesterday. But of course, the Commission's interesting discussions and constitutional amendments that are actually detailed in the EFF's 12 policy documents. But of course, we'll see you in about half an hour. Back to studio.
All right, Natasha, thank you so much for your update. Natasha Phiri, there, a reporter out at Nazareth Expo Centre in south of Johannesburg as a part of the review to the EFF's National Elective Conference.